All right.
This is going to be the world's best podcast.
So my name is Grossmann. I'm not a physiotherapist, but I'm kind of a physio mixed with a personal trainer. And through the Training Stimulus, my company, I teach clinicians and coaches a methodology for identifying and fixing the root cause of injuries to get better results for their clients and grow their businesses or clinics. Because a lot of the standard ways people address injuries or provide rehab focuses on the symptoms rather than the root cause. So we teach the ability to do that root cause analysis so you can fix it long term and stop those recurring injuries coming back.
And what motivated you to get inside this space?
Most people who work in this space have their own injury frustration story. So as a teenager, I had a neck and shoulder injury from playing rugby, and it was bad but not that bad, which is kind of why it was more frustrating, in that periodically I would have a neck spasm or my shoulder would hurt. I'd take a week or two off, get some physio, it would feel slightly better, and I'd return. But that injury loop basically repeated for about 10 years. And only when I was working in my early mid-20s did I start to get frustrated with the lack of change, because I was sat in the office just thinking, this is the same issue I had 10 years ago when I was 14, and I'm doing the same exercises, getting short-term relief, but obviously something is getting missed here. And by this point, I'd seen so many different physios, osteos, chiros, seen shoulder surgeons, had all the scans and stuff, but nobody could really give me a satisfactory answer. So I've always been into sports and training, and at the time I had an office job, so I would just sneakily do research into all different types of training. And back then, functional training wasn't what it is today. It was still quite niche, and went down the rabbit hole of CrossFit, mobility training, and basically realized that there was a lot of knowledge and expertise, but in very small, isolated pockets. And I had the idea, at that point, I wasn't deciding that I probably wasn't going to be a management consultant for the rest of my life. So I was thinking I want to set my own thing up. So I identified that there was a big gap in the market, because there'll be a lot of people like me who have these frustrating recurring injuries who are not getting looked after properly by the traditional healthcare or rehab industry. So I didn't know exactly what shape it would take at that start point, but I knew that developing expertise in the space would be step one. So I understood how it worked, and then figure out how to make it into a more scalable business after that.
Through that process, did you discover solutions that worked for your own injury? And how did it feel, like feeling a sense of progress and seeking out these different new methods?
Yeah, it felt amazing. So as soon as I stepped forward on this path, loads of people started connecting me with other people in the space. And my first mentor in movement was a guy called Luke Chamberlain, who was recommended to me. He's a personal trainer and movement specialist. And I basically started having sessions with him from an educational perspective. So he would teach me while also kind of training me and working on this injury. So the catchphrase I like for this is, I basically had more progress in 10 minutes with him than I'd had in 10 years, where he got me doing these crazy exercises that I'd never seen before. And all the right muscles felt like they turned on for the first time. My shoulder pain went away, and I felt like I could do all the movements that previously had been triggering. And that was a real light bulb moment of like, this shit works. There's something in this, because I've been researching this myself for years, doing all the normal standard approaches, and had very limited success. But this guy was able to hit the nail on the head very quickly and get me a result that I'd struggled to find seeing countless professionals before that. So it was really inspiring and motivating, like, this is going to help a lot of people. I just need to figure out how to deliver it.
I think you can definitely draw parallels from that with business, about the right coaches, people who've had extreme levels of experience, can spot things very fast that can take you years to discover on your own. But how complex do you think the human body is and injuries are, is movement is? And do you think that a lot of traditional solutions only really scratch the surface and the deep expertise are what unlock real like injury improvement?
Yeah, good question. The human body is incredibly complex, and I think that is why the traditional systems struggle to get good results consistently, is because they're designed for high volumes of patients. So, for example, in the UK, physios might have 20 or 30 minutes with their patients, and maybe 45 if they're lucky for an initial consultation. But they're expected to figure out exactly what's going on and then do some treatment or prescribe some exercise for somebody to go away and make some progress. And whenever you're trying to cater for everybody, you're really not catering for anybody specifically. And there's just not enough time to do a thorough analysis of what's going on for somebody in those short appointment times. Like I've heard crazy stories, usually about chiropractors, where I actually chatted to a guy who had 2-minute appointments. He had 2 minutes in the treatment room with his patients. So literally just give them a quick manipulation and kick them out.
Yeah.
So in those short appointment times, you can't do enough of an investigation to figure out what's really going on with somebody's body. And even, I'd say this at the start of my education pathway, even my system is just a model. So it's representing what I believe, like in my opinion, is the best bang for buck amount of variables to consider when you're assessing somebody's body. The reality is everything affects everything in the body. Even like, so we focus on biomechanics and tissues in the body, but your psychological state impacts things. The level of inflammation from your diet impacts things. The environment and climate you live in will impact things. Whether you went out boozing the night before is a frequent trigger for people's inflammatory injuries. So the real answer would involve so much data, it's impractical to apply on a daily basis. So you've got to make a decision of how much are you going to take in to make a practical assessment of what's going on, to give somebody enough guidance to make meaningful progress. So whenever people, like, there's loads of different systems out there and they all have their pros and cons, but at some point, if the person designing it has really thought about it, they've had to say this is in and that's out, even though that is a useful consideration. If we layer it in, it's too much complexity to make it practical on a day-to-day basis, which is the nuts and bolts of delivering this sort of service for a patient. They come in, you've got to figure out in a reasonable time frame what's going on, and then give them something that's going to make them better. And I would say those high volume systems are one end of the spectrum, where it's very light, minimal consultation and history taking and generic treatments. And the number of people that I've worked with who just got a PDF printout of generic shoulder rehab or generic knee rehab with no consideration of their starting point or their training goals is sadly very high.
So to broadly group the business model, it's a service-based coaching business.
No, it's education, actually.
Education-based.
Okay.
B2B. So is it all information, like in terms of how they can improve their mobility through videos, coaching, etc.?
So our customers are the professionals. So we work with the physiotherapist, with the osteopath, with the chiropractor.
For them to do their own practice on their patients and customers better.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So we teach them the diagnosis process. So how do you extract the information from their patient to get clues to help with that detective work of establishing the root cause? Then we teach them detailed biomechanical analysis, so assessing their mobility, their stability, their skill and motor control to identify where their body moves well and where it doesn't. And quite often, where is painful on the body can be very far away from where the root cause dysfunction is. Like, you get crazy referrals and compensation patterns where somebody's left foot is the root cause of their right shoulder pain, for example.
That's crazy.
It can be
That
like
is so interesting.
So yeah, we need to teach these professionals the tools to figure that out.
Yeah.
So once they've learned how to do these tests, we essentially put them in a safe learning environment where they can test it out,
Yeah.
give them feedback to make sure they're doing it right, and then they can go out.
Yeah.
Use it for a while.
I love the info space, like the information economy. And the result of an info business is improvements to service businesses.
Yeah.
And that means that their product, which is patient results, improve. So how did you improve your own product or like fulfillment processes to provide better education to clients? And what did that journey look like from the first initial client results to where you are now, 15 years in, hundreds of clients served? How did that fulfillment process evolve?
Great. So when I started working in this space, I was doing it as a practitioner myself. So I always went into the fitness industry with the intention of being a movement specialist, helping people with the biomechanics around their injuries and their performance, and ended up doing a lot of work in the CrossFit space because they're a great population of people who really care about their performance and will put in the work.
It's more than just bodybuilding or showboating in that community. It's about like physical health, movement. What are you actually capable of doing with your body? So it definitely aligns with like movement mechanics.
Exactly. And they feel the benefit. Like if their squat isn't deep enough or their overhead position isn't good enough to hit certain movements, they can feel it. And so when you give them a big improvement, they really notice the benefit and are very keen for that type of work. So I basically was, developing expertise and reputation as a practitioner myself, and was fortunate enough to work with some relatively high profile athletes. And a lot of my customers would be practitioners themselves. So either I had a lot of CrossFit coaches and good athletes, and there are a lot of what I now call hybrid clinicians. So people who offer treatment but also like training as well. So you might have a CrossFit coach who's also a physiotherapist, or a chiropractor who's also a weightlifter. And a lot of those people were coming to me with their injuries, and they would then ask me, like, how did I learn this stuff and if I could teach them. And so I started informally mentoring a couple of the other trainers at my gym, and then more people started asking me. And I used to run a podcast with a mate about training and movement and stuff. And there was actually a lady in Pakistan who I had no connection to, who reached out and was like, do you offer any education? Because I love the way you explain things and I'd love to learn from you. And so by this point, I'd mentored quite a few people in person. And I was like, okay, it's the right time to formalize this now. So in COVID, I started offering the mentorship out and delivering it all through Zoom, so live sessions. And after doing several intakes of that, each time obviously it's getting better and better. The syllabus is getting tighter. I'm learning the best way to explain certain concepts and taking on board the feedback and the common questions that come through. And then I essentially was like, right, there's a lot of this which I'm teaching the same way, but the real key for the best students is the real life practice. So I essentially tried to record the best version of delivery that I've done over all those iterations, and then focused on giving the feedback based on their real world implementation of the exercises and assessments.
And they would send you videos of them completing the exercises for you to review.
Exactly, yeah. So one of my the key parts of my approach is that the best way to get good at any skill is by doing it. So if you want to get good at assessing somebody's biomechanics, you need to do it. You can't just watch 100 videos seeing somebody else do it. You actually need to do it, and having going through that process of setting somebody up, cueing them correctly, training your eye to see the detail. You can't really shortcut that. So that's an integral part of the mentorship program. and then having me and the team review their videos to make sure they're
Yeah.
doing it right.
And the exciting part of this is now that it becomes scalable.
Exactly.
Like you can deliver the education, hundreds, thousands of people can watch those same videos and benefit from them. And in terms of the feedback videos, it's all online. It's more higher leverage. You don't have to go to them in person and assess their movement.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the one to actually do that as well.
Yeah.
Coaches can be involved reviewing the footage. And that means that not only can you have a bigger impact, but you can also grow a bigger business.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting stage to have progressed through.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing that excites me most is almost, it's like a family tree of people that I've taught, and then all the people that they're working with on a daily or weekly basis. You know, if I had a super busy week, I might see 20 or 30 people for a full assessment, and that would be crazy busy because they're quite long things to do. And now everyone that I've taught could be doing that. So
Yeah.
that number grows exponentially. And then the guys who I brought in to help with the education are now we're teaching at a growing rate as well. The number of people we can work with and educate is growing exponentially as well.
Roughly how many people do you think that you've educated?
Well, we've had about 110 go through the mentorship program, but in terms of workshops, and I used to run the education for a big gym chain in London as well. That'll be hundreds and hundreds, like several hundred people through that.
How many patients do you think each of them, or customers or clients on average, would have had?
Well, when you're talking about the osteos and the chiros, they can still do shorter sessions. Like there's
so some of them
one
10,
chiro,
20 a day, or
like some. I think there's one chiro who I saw recently, and I think he was doing 20-minute appointments, so like over 20 a day.
So it's amazing when you can zoom out and see the impact that you can have at the education level, bringing everything up, and then those results trickling down into real impact with the same thing that you struggled with, which was like a serious injury that truly disrupts your life and causes you pain, causes you to make different career decisions, hobby decisions, and you get to have a huge impact from that. And I want to ask, what's your favorite part of what you do?
Well, it relates to that, actually. It's getting a message from one of our mentees about a success story they've had. There's one of the guys in the team now, Liam, and his partner is a gymnastics coach. So he gets quite a lot of young girls into gymnastics with injuries. And he's had several stories now where a girl has been struggling with an injury for months or maybe even longer. And he manages to turn it around so that they not only get pain-free, but then start unlocking moves that they couldn't execute in whatever discipline they were doing. And those are the ones that really...
you viscerally feel them.
Exactly, because I can relate to that as a young kid playing sports and not being able to play the sport that I wanted, having it taken away, but then given back. That really resonates. Like, we've had awesome stories as well where our coaches have supported athletes through to the CrossFit Games, so the absolute pinnacle of that sport. And we've worked with some high-profile athletes,
high performers and athletes,
and I think that's really cool. But in terms of like the impact on somebody's life, when you go from not being able to do a sport that you love to then being able to do it and excelling at it, for me that's a bigger swing than somebody who's already performing at a super high level performing at an even higher level. That's really cool, but it doesn't feel like it's so life-changing, I guess.
Great answer. One thing I'd love to do is zoom out a bit more into the business and your journey as an entrepreneur. So even though you did this from a place of passion and solving a problem that you had for yourself, I think that that's a pretty common pattern of going into business, like people doing something from a place of passion and then figuring out how to monetize it, how to productize it, how to ship it. But what gave you the light bulb moment, or what was your journey like from transitioning from 9 to 5, working corporate as a consultant, into the entrepreneurial space over time?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was doing management consulting, this is 2010 is when I started, and basically there were not many podcasts available then, or not many big ones, but one of them was the Tim Ferriss podcast.
I
And
love it.
yeah, I couldn't get enough of it. I was
4 Hour
listening-
Work Week.
Exactly. And that was the book that changed my life, actually, in hindsight, because it was so paradigm shifting for me, the concept of what does work mean and what are you trying to get out of work. And he just flipped the scripts on a lot of standard assumptions, I think, especially in the UK, people have about what you should do with your career. And it essentially made me realize that one of the major outcomes I want from my career is freedom, to not be beholden to working hours or working in a specific place and earning a fixed salary no matter what my performance or work was. And yeah, it basically made me realize that the only path for me was to be self-employed and do the entrepreneurial thing, where you have a much tighter connection between your effort and performance and your reward.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to choose what you work on as well. There's just so much more freedom in decision making. Yeah,
Of course, you're uncapped as well in
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. If you find ways to leverage your time more effectively, to build better systems, to employ people, there's no stopping the amount of impact, the amount of money that you can create in this space. Whereas even as a successful corporate employee, unless you have incredibly well set up payment incentives or you're paid in commission in a sales job, generally you're capped.
Yeah.
Like 5% growth a year.
Yeah.
Even with promotions. And you can put so much time into a career to not really get that much out of it.
Yeah.
And if you want to bet on yourself that you can do a better job over time by yourself in the more creator business economy, like, it just seems like the logical path.
Completely. And the big part of it as well, there's a paragraph in the 4 Hour Work Week where he's describing somebody who has loads of money, makes loads of money, but they work 80 hours a week. And to me, that's losing the
Cash
game.
rich, time poor.
Yeah, like you don't have freedom. You can't do the things that you want to do. Like for me, winning in life, a big part of that is doing what you want to do when you want to do it, with who the people you want to do it with. And if you are chained to a desk, even 9 to 5, but really the people that make the big bucks doing longer days, they can't
Extremely hard.
choose how they allocate their time.
Mhm.
And for me, that's actually a massive compromise for your overall life. You just think, stuff like this, I can just decide I want to do a podcast with you. I don't have to ask for permission from anybody. I can make it work in my diary.
Yeah.
If I want to train at a certain time of day, if I want to have a coffee with somebody. I remember when I used to work at one of the banks I worked at, people would make comments about how long I took for lunch. And it was just so demeaning that you don't trust me to do my job, or you're making sarky comments about, say, me going to the gym at lunchtime. And I'm like, I'm a grown man and you're kind of clock watching me about how I spend my lunch because you decided to have some shitty meal at your desk and not stretch your legs. Like
it's crazy. It is crazy, isn't it? One thing I want to say about the 4 Hour Work Week is, even though it's an old book, the principles of it are so needed today.
Yeah.
I mean, he talks about purchasing power. So we both traveled quite a lot and spent time living in different countries. We've seen how far income can go in some countries compared to others. Again, if you have a good 6-figure salary, but you're in New York and you have to pay rent that is $5,000, $6,000 a month, you have to spend on expensive transport and food within a very constrained system. Your purchasing power is so much lower than, for example, in Southeast Asia, where with a relatively modest income, you can live exceptionally well. Other principles from the book, VAs. I think Tim Ferriss was the first person to properly popularize that you need to have somebody to manage your emails. And nowadays, that also applies to content tasks, editing tasks, anything that's low leverage, that is maybe a $10 an hour task, even if you're a $20 an hour. But if you're an entrepreneur, you want to pitch your time at a very high rate. And below that, other people should be doing that. And there's still a massive arbitrage opportunity between talent in less economically rich countries and the countries which other people as ourselves are privileged to be born in. So on this topic, what are some ways that have unlocked time for you, a bit on lines of the 4-hour work week, that have had a big impact in your life and business?
Yeah, like delegation is the big one. I think I love a bit of software and tools and AI and all that stuff, and there's probably a lot of time I've saved using those as well. But the big unlocks have been hiring, and I think the best money I spend every month is actually my cleaner. It's more than a cleaner, it's more like a house manager.
Yeah. Or what do they call it in
Bimbantu?
Bimbantu,
like helper. And I've been lucky enough to find a really good one, and it's easily 10 to 20 hours a week of chores that I don't have to do, that she does better than I do, and completely removes from my headspace. Like, I don't have to think about topping up kitchen roll or toilet roll. I don't have to buy soap or dishwashing liquid, or think about when I'm going to do my laundry, because it's just always done soon.
It's so simple, isn't it? Like, we have the same here. We have a cleaner 6 days a week. Come in, tidy the bed, take away the washing, take away the clothes, take away the water bottle that you left, clean up. And even though it can feel like some people would frame it as lazy, this is allowing you to have time where you can rest and recover, and also time to perform on the high leverage task within your business, the high leverage task within your life, like relationships, etc. And I think it's still undervalued, like how much other people can unlock times. And then within your business as well, have there been key delegations which have unlocked time for you?
Yeah. So two, like training the coaches to help deliver the feedback. That was actually a sort of paradigm shift for me as well, because I thought that the feedback had to come from me, that people were buying the education to hear from me, that they learn from me and that I'm doing the teaching, but I've also taught the other teachers. So it's good for their development, because, one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it to somebody else. So the guys I've got helping with the mentorship have become much better themselves through teaching the materials to other people. But it kind of opened my eyes to think that with the right training and support, you can kind of develop anybody to do anything. And one part of it is you're not as special as you think you are, but you can take yourself out of processes that you might not think on first glance. So that's been incredible for being able to deliver to more people. And secondly, the VA. So I've worked with several VAs over the years, but hiring one full time has been a big unlock as well. Again, like I've worked with many who are not so good, but taking the time to find a really good one and investing the effort to train them well and set up the systems to make sure they can do the jobs well. Having the ability to just trust something will get done without having to micromanage or keep an eye on it, again, just exponentially grows the amount of work that you can get done per unit time.
I think the thing about systemization is it's always painful, but you're always grateful after it's finished. So different types of systemization, automating things, removing them, delegating them. When you first have to do them, it can seem daunting or intimidating. To create a good process or to hire someone, you have to put in a lot of upfront effort, or to write good code that doesn't require maintenance or looking after, to train somebody well. All of these things are like ripping off the plaster. You have to put in that extra bit of effort at the start. But then without that technical debt in the long run, you're free to push forward at a much faster pace and things get done without you. And it's like, you never regret systemizing things or creating a new process. And if you regret a hire, then you fire them and find somebody else.
I think that's also part of business, unfortunately. Not everyone's made to do every job forever. So even if it's just for a period of time, it's part of their development journey, it serves a purpose for both parties, then that's fine. But I don't know if it's Tim Ferriss or somebody else. I remember this rule of thumb of however long it takes you to do a task, it's worth 30 times the effort to train somebody else to do it, just as a rule of thumb. So say it takes you an hour to do whatever weekly process you need to do, you should be willing to spend 30 hours to train somebody else to do that.
And you can break down the maths of it a bit yourself. If you're a bit rigorous for a couple of weeks, do a time audit of how you're spending your own time. And then if you recognize, I'm spending 30 hours coaching, so I'm spending 30 hours coaching a week, that's a huge amount. Or say we simplify it to 10. I plan to be continuing in this profession for at least a year with 50 weeks, 50 times 10, 500 hours. How many hours am I willing to put in to remove that coaching obligation forever? Well, certainly the 500 hours. And when you can break things down and realize that you're going to have to do this task again, or you're going to have to hire again, you're going to have to redo this process, unless you put some upfront effort into systemizing it, which could be automating it, it could be delegating it, it could be something else. Be honest with yourself and spend that initial time, create space for it.
Exactly.
Ash, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. A bit of a shorter episode today. But it's been great hearing about your expertise, and I'm sure we'll speak again in the future.
Love to come back.